Okay, good evening and welcome back once again to the We Are Marshall podcast. My name is Stephen Marshall and this is my co-host Bill McIntyre. Always, we are just two guys discussing the issues of the day, laying out the facts of those issues, and giving you our opinion and view on those issues. We would also love it here at the We Are Marshall podcast if you would like and share all of our episodes around your social media. We can be found on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Locals, X, Truth Social, and Rumble. Rumble is where we populate our full channel with season 1 and 2 of all our episodes. So download the free app Rumble and search for the We Are Marshall podcast. Then subscribe and follow to get notification of new episodes and other endeavors by Bill and I. Check out our episodes on all these social media sites and share them to help us grow. We'd also love if you would check out our website at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com. You can see a number of things Bill and I are working on the website. If you go to Bill's bio, you can click on a link to all his blog posts and check out Vela on Amazon, where Bill also writes episodic short stories for your viewing. Check out my 2 books currently for sale on Amazon, The Unforeseen Enemy and The Perception Therapist. Both are available now. Also, check out our sponsors, Local Prints New Hampshire. You can go to our website again at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com and click on the link to Local Prints New Hampshire on the top left. They are a full-scale screen printing company in Hampstead, New Hampshire, and they are available for domestic and international printing. Go support them as they support us. Also, check out our large sponsor, MateConnector.com, a large dating website just like all the other big dating websites out there with all the features that the big players have in the dating sphere. But Mate Connector is much more inexpensive than any of the other players in the dating market. Also, let us recognize our newest sponsor, Army Ranger Painting and Contracting, a full-scale contracting business. Check them out at armyrangerpainting.com. If you have any questions or issues, you can reach us both at the following emails: Bill at wearemarshallpodcast.com, and me, Steve at wearemarshallpodcast.com. We've been away for a bit, so of course we've got a lot to cover today, so let us jump right into the issues of the day. So the first one I'm going to run with today, Bill, is Iran says it gave warning before attacking Israel, but U.S. says that's not true. And we're going to discuss this because you and I spoke about it before it even transpired. But Turkish and Jordanian and Iraqi officials said on Sunday that Iran gave wide notice days before its drone and missile attack on Israel. But U.S. officials said Tehran did not warn Washington and that it was aiming to cause significant damage. Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles on Saturday in a retaliatory strike after a suspected Israeli strike on its embassy compound in Syria. Most of the drones and missiles were down before reaching Israel, though a young girl was critically injured and there were widespread concerns of further escalation. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amirabdollahian, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, said on Sunday that Iran gave a neighboring countries and Israel's ally, the United States, 72 hours notice it would launch the strikes. Turkey's foreign minister said it had spoken to both Washington and Tehran before the attack, adding it had conveyed messages as an intermediary to be sure reactions were proportional. Iran said the reaction would be a response to Israel's attack on its embassy in Damascus, and that it would not go beyond this. We were aware of the possibilities. The developments were not a surprise, said a Turkish diplomatic source. One senior official in the U.S., President Joe Biden's administration, denied Amirabdollahian's statement, saying Washington did have contact with Iran through Swiss intermediaries, but did not get notice 72 hours in advance. That is absolutely not true, the official said. They did not give a notification, nor did they give any sense of these will be the targets, so evacuate them. Tehran sent the United States a message only after the strikes began, and the intent was to be highly destructive, said the official, adding that Iran's claim of a widespread warning may be an attempt to compensate for the lack of any major damage from the attack. We received a message from the Iranians as this was ongoing to the Swiss. This was basically suggesting that they were finished after this, but it was still an ongoing attack, so that was their message to us, the U.S. official said. Iraqi, Turkish, and Jordanian officials each said Iran had provided early warning of the attack last week, including some details. The attack with drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles risked causing major casualties and escalating the conflict. U.S. officials said on Friday and Saturday they expected an imminent attack and urged Iran against one, with Biden tersely saying his only message to Iran was, don't. The two Iraqi sources, including a government security advisor and a security official, said Iran had used diplomatic channels to inform Baghdad about the attack at least 3 days before it happened. The exact timing of the attack was not disclosed at that point, but was passed to Iraqi security and military authorities hours before the strikes, allowing Baghdad to close its airspace and avoid fatal accidents. The government clearly understood from the Iranian officials that the U.S. military in Iraq was also aware of the attack in advance, said the Iraqi security official. A senior Jordanian official said Iran had summoned Arab envoys in Tehran on Wednesday to inform them of their intention to carry out an attack, though it did not specify the timing. Asked if Iran had also given details about the targets and kind of weapons to be used, the Jordanian source did not respond directly, but indicated that that was the case. An Iranian source briefed on the matter said Iran had informed the U.S. through diplomatic channels that included Qatar, Turkey, and Switzerland about the scheduled day of the attack, saying it would be conducted in a manner to avoid provoking a response. How far escalation can be avoided remains a question. Biden has told Israel the United States will not join any Israeli retaliation, the U.S. official said. However, Israel is still weighing its response and will exact the price from Iran in the fashion and timing that is right for us, Israeli Minister Benny Gantz said on Sunday. Now, Bill, we talked about this, and I'm gonna be very frank. Our government is lying. They're so lying because you and I talked about before this attack that we found. How do we find out that there was 2 days? Remember we talked about it?
Yep.
They gave 2 days before there was going to be an attack, and now they're saying they didn't. Well, how did all of us in America, all of the citizens, know that there was going to be an attack in 2 days, but our government didn't? And they're saying that they told the Iraqis, and our military in Iraq didn't know that either? Ridiculous. I mean, this is how gaslighting Biden's administration is. But then on top of it, how the hell do you turn to Israel? I mean, this is where my mind's getting blown on this whole subject. October 7th was awful, and you're telling Israel, oh, they killed 2,000 people roundabout. I could be off by a little bit. They killed 2,000.
Yeah.
Okay, they killed 2,000 people, but please, hey, don't do anything to them. I mean, that is completely ridiculous. If Mexico shot some missiles into the U.S. and killed 2,000 people, Mexico City would not exist. It would be done.
Right.
Secondly, they did this massive attack on Israel with drones, ballistic missiles, and other forms.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line is they did over 300 of these, okay? Mm-hmm. The U.S. even says they expected a large scale, like they thought there were going to be a lot of casualties. That was the whole point of it. And even though they say that, they turn to Israel and say, oh, we know they shot 300 missiles and drones at you, but don't do anything. Don't worry about it. This is completely
my favorite
insane.
when Biden said it was a win that your Iron Dome system stopped everything. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's simply ridiculous. So I look at those two aspects in this Israel war, and I'm like, what is going on? Because we wouldn't stand for any of this. Why do we expect our only democratic friend in the Middle East to not do the same? What do you think?
Well, I mean, we talked about this right after October 7th when the initial reaction from the Biden administration, the impotent response that they gave about not retaliating. And the comparison was made, and the math added up, because given the population of Israel and given the casualties suffered on October 7th, it was approximately equivalent to our 9/11, okay? And nobody would ever have suggested to the United States that we not retaliate, for what happened. And it was more difficult for us because our enemy was really unknown. We knew who did it, but it wasn't a country. There wasn't a border or a demographic area to attack. We had to root these guys out one by one, and then of course the big guy. It was shameful then. It's shameful now. And for Biden to say that it was a win that you sat there and didn't suffer any damage, okay, but they had hundreds of projectiles fired at them, okay, with the intention of killing them. Whether they stopped them or not isn't even the point. And then to encourage them not to retaliate, it's just disgusting, in my opinion. And when you mentioned you want to cover this topic tonight, I was all over it. And you hit the right points on the head because, let's face it, okay, maybe our enemies might have been informed about this, but they're not going to tell us because they're just going to be a part of it. I looked into whether there was airspace violations, possibly in the works here, because for an attack, the possibility of violating airspace to your neighbors in the process of attacking Israel is a real thing. And in actuality, most of the missiles were shot down by U.S. From the sea. We shot down UK and the United States and Jordan from their land-based operations successfully neutralized a significant amount of the threat, proving that what a great ally they are to us. But the UK and the United States battleships in the vicinity shot down, I don't know, of 360 missiles. We shot down the slowest moving drones, and then Israel Iron Dome worked very well and everything else. But this subject of giving us a warning is ridiculous, okay? And frankly, the word gaslighting, we love to talk about the word gaslighting so much that I actually watched the movie from 1939. I told you about
That's
that.
funny. Yeah, we talked about that too. Yeah,
to get the real definition. And this is just so stupid to think that we'd ever believe that we were given a heads up. We would have done something if we were given a heads up. We would have known. We would have looked for what the sites they potentially coming from, and we would have taken them out. Bottom line. So,
well, like I'm saying, do you think that? Remember how we talked that there was a 2-day attack? Something was going on.
right.
You and I knew this, so you're going to tell me that our government didn't do it? I think what they're trying to do, Bill, is backtrack on the fact that they knew, because I'm going to say something, and it's an allegation. I'm letting you folks know that. I can't definitively tell you that it's factual, but I do believe.
Put it out there.
No, this is some things I've heard, and I need to verify it more, but I did not today, but I just want to say it. I heard that Joe Biden gave the okay to the Iranians to do this.
Oh, my God.
This is why I think they're backtracking on that. He is trying to kiss the Iranians' ass.
So we're going to be on the hook to restock all the weapons they use to defend themselves to the Iron Dome and continue endless aid to both them and Ukraine. And he said it's okay for them to do that because we want to maintain. Is that his idea of avoiding a larger conflict, allowing our mutual enemy to attack our ally? Is that what we're hearing?
I don't know. So we need to look into this more because I heard it from one of our famous podcasters that we listen to.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm going to commit right here. We are going to look into that.
Okay. But we'll end that subject. I got much more on it going forward. But we're going to do the podcast a little different today because Bill's got some nice opinion pieces from opposite perspectives, and we definitively want to hear that. So in segment 2 here, Bill is going to run with the This Day in History segment. So go right ahead, Bill, because this one's actually very interesting.
Thanks, Steve. What we're doing here is that we have a semantic discussion about what an invasion is. What constitutes an invasion, and I'm going to talk about the southern border, and to break up the pieces would do a disservice. So thank you, Steve, for allowing a change in the format here. But it seems I have a change in a theme going here. In this day in history, in 1961, we have the Bay of Pigs invasion. This is interesting because I love watching movies and shows about the Cold War and all that. And this was a pretty formidable event. You had the Castro administration had just taken over Cuba, much embarrassment to the United States and to the world. Americans were kicked out. We lost one of our greatest areas of military significance for starters. And then, of course, a lot of people went there to, on vacation and all that. It was pretty interesting when it all happened. And Kennedy, the CIA, back in an era where, in a documentary I'd watched, it was described as an era where the CIA was given carte blanche to do whatever they want, and they actually made up or just seized on opportunities to flex their international muscles. And the Bay of Pigs was one. It was a very poorly designed amphibious operation in which they expected that the Cuban people would rally around us. And in actuality, it backfired horribly and was a very major embarrassment for the Kennedy administration and Kennedy himself. The Bay of Pigs in '61 began when a CIA financed a trained group of refugees. We stormed the beach, if you will, to try to topple the communist government of Fidel Castro. Castro had been a concern to U.S. policymakers since he took over Cuba in 1959. His attacks on U.S. companies and interests in Cuba, his very inflammatory anti-American rhetoric, and Cuba's obvious movement towards a closer relationship with our arch enemy, Cold War foe, the Soviet Union, we had to conclude that the leader was a major threat to us and all of our interests in the Western Hemisphere. So in 1960, Eisenhower ordered the CIA to train an armed force of Cuban exiles for an armed attack. And Kennedy inherited the program when he became president in '61. So he was actually advised almost unilaterally against this. No one believed that. Never mind with or without the cooperation of the Cuban people. The force wasn't trained enough. It wasn't large enough. There was really no certainty that would work. But Kennedy, historically, look back, you can always question something after it happened, but he made the decision to move forward with it. And only about 1,200 exiles using American weapons and landing craft, they went to the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, and they were counting on the Cuban citizenry rallying behind the saving Americans, and it totally backfired. They were actually enjoying benefits they hadn't experienced under Castro. A lot of wealth distribution had happened, and the particular area that we invaded was thriving under Castro's government. So the plan fell apart. The landing force met with severe counterattacks from the military, and the little air force that Cuba had sank almost every supply ship that we had, and we didn't provide air support. On top of that, the uprising failed to even happen. Over 100 attackers were killed and 1,100 were captured. So this was a very costly event for us. Castro stood on a soapbox and told the rest of the world how he defeated the mighty Yankee imperialists, and he solidified his power both in propaganda and militarily. And of course, he drew the additional support of the Soviets, who just loved to pounce on an American defeat. It was pretty ugly, and obviously we know that it was essentially linked to the Cuban Missile Crisis in '62, a year later, where the world came as close to a nuclear conflict as it ever has, even to this date. So the United States became increasingly unpopular in the entire Southern Hemisphere after this event. And it's pretty significant because A, it was an example of the CIA running its own thing and doing its own thing. And B, it was an example of politics gone wrong. So I think it's really important to mention it. I think a lot of people, as time goes by, forget these things happened. But again, Cuba's only 90 miles away from the coast of Florida. It is a pretty significant place. So that's what I have for that one, Steve.
Well, I mean, I look at this. Everybody raves about Kennedy. And this is one of the big things that, to me, Kennedy was a mess. He just didn't know his international play with the world was not good. He was good domestically where people liked him. But outside of this country, I think he failed on a number of levels. And this shows also, which we see kind of the CIA doing some weird things now. They're trying to fit in now. Because you are right. You nailed it. And people got to understand this. The CIA used to do whatever the hell they wanted, anywhere they wanted. They're not supposed to operate on U.S. soil. But I'm telling you right now, the way they operate, they definitively operated on U.S. soil.
Absolutely.
Okay? Yeah. So the bottom line is you got to understand that the CIA hates the times now because they can't do as much as they used to do. They're going to get caught. People are going to tell on them. They're going to get seen. Things aren't as clandestine as they used to be for them to commit some of the things they did, like the drug running that they did for decades to finance some of their black ops. So we've got to understand that our country has done some nefarious things to get some things done, and that's how they'll justify it. We did them to do other things that were better for the world or the country. But good
look
segment.
at White Boy
Bay of
Rick.
Pigs is
White Boy Rick. They actually flooded the black communities with crack and caused the entire crack epidemic, and then denied they had anything to do with it. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and we could
stuff.
bring that up. We could get on a whole diatribe here on the drug. The drug wars, here's the thing people got to understand. The drug wars are not really drug dealers fighting against the police, okay? The drug wars are really other countries pushing drugs into our country to do nefarious things to our citizens, to get us addicted. Sure. And then in their defense, we did that to them. We did it to China back in the day with the opium houses. And we did it to Vietnam and Korea and all these other places. So we are not perfect. We are probably the greatest country on the planet. I do agree with that always. But we have done some things, and we need to own that. But good segment, Bill. What I recommend for people is watch the JFK movie with Kevin Costner. You will get a good depiction of that if you don't want to read about it or do anything. It's a very good movie, and it does portray this situation very well.
13 Days also does a pretty good job of showing how the Kennedy White House was.
13 Days, is another one. Absolutely.
And very also good. In the news today, Steve, was China's involvement in the fentanyl crisis. So, see, there we go, full circle. Big story.
Finally, after I've been touting it for a while. But
who brought that up recently?
I know.
You.
So I'm going to move on to segment 3. And then after I do this, it's going to be more of my Israel. We're going to let Bill do his opinion pieces that are going to be from both sides of the aisle, both sides of perception, both sides of a view, which I think is a great way to approach it. But my next topic here at the We Are Marshall podcast is Netanyahu, who is the leader of Israel. If you didn't know that, he's the prime minister, says 9 chilling words as Iran's president vows to completely destroy Israel. Now, in the first segment, I talked about the U.S., telling Israel to tamper down. Okay, they just got 300 missiles, drones, all this shot at them. Their president that shot them at them vows to completely destroy their country. But the U.S. is like, oh, wait a minute. Please stop that. The only reason they're doing this, people, is because they want voters in Michigan. Joe Biden's against the ropes, and they want them. That's disgusting. They're pandering for votes to get people killed that are democracies around the world. Remember that when you go to the election ballot box in November, please. But anyway, this issue with 9 chilling words from Iran from Netanyahu is Iran's military attack on Saturday was the first time the country ever launched a direct attack on Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday left no doubt in a statement regarding what his Jewish country might do should current tensions with Iran escalate further. Israel will do whatever it needs to defend itself, Netanyahu said in a statement. Bravo, do it. The comment came after separate meetings with British Foreign Secretary David Cameron and Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock in Israel on Wednesday, during which the ministers discussed actions Israel could pursue to retaliate for Iran's unprecedented direct attack on Israel over the weekend. Now listen to what I just wrote, what I wrote here on this one. During which the ministers, so you're talking 2 ministers of other countries, discussed actions Israel could pursue. Are you telling me they're telling Israel what they can do after this?
Everybody is, including our president.
It's unbelievable, man. They have all sorts of suggestions and advice. I appreciate that, Netanyahu says, but I want to be clear. Our decisions we will make ourselves, the prime minister added. During the meeting, Baerbock said escalation would serve no one, not Israel's security, not the many dozens of hostages still in the hands of Hamas, not the suffering population of Gaza, not the many people in Iran who are themselves suffering under the regime, and not the third countries in the region who simply want to live in peace, Reuters reported. Netanyahu's comment also comes just hours after Iran's president has vowed to completely destroy Israel, should it proceed with even the tiniest invasion of its country. President Ibrahim Raisi vowed a massive and harsh response to potential Israeli retaliation during a speech Wednesday at an annual army parade. Iran launched hundreds of missiles and drones at Israel on Saturday in response to an apparent strike on Iran's embassy compound in Syria on April 1st that killed 12 people, including 2 Iranian generals. Iran blames Israel for the attack, although Israel has not claimed any involvement. Raisi said Saturday's attack was a limited one, but that nothing would remain from the Zionist regime should it escalate the current situation. The official IRNA news agency reported Israel and Iran have waged a shadow war for decades, with the war coming to a head over the past few months as Iran supports Hamas, which carried out the deadliest terror attack in Israel's history on October 7th. The Jewish country then launched a massive ground invasion of the Gaza Strip, intending to secure their hostages from Hamas and to remove the terror group from governing the territory. On Saturday, Israel, with help from the US and UK, neighboring Jordan, and other nations, successfully intercepted nearly every missile and drone that Iran launched. Israel boasted of a 99% success rate through the use of its Iron Dome and David Sling systems. Israel has said it will respond, although it has not provided additional details on how or when. Its allies have urged any retaliation to be strikes in areas that would not result in human casualties and thus likely avoiding further escalation. I keep hearing this, and what do they want Israel to do? No one seems to understand. Israel is in the middle. They are surrounded by enemies. They have a Hamas on the Gaza Strip and Hezbollah on the northern Gaza Strip. They launch rockets willy-nilly into neighborhoods all the time, and thank goodness we gave them the Iron Dome to protect the neighborhoods like that. But when you've got something like that and the leader that just launched 300 things, at some point, that guy's got to go. The whole religious regime of Iran's got to go, because that's what's killing that country right now. They don't even have really a military bill. They could get bitch slapped in 2 seconds. The only thing they have is regime protection. They try to maintain the regime that they currently have. If an actual army went into Iran to take it over, it would be done in no time. It would be just like Iraq when we did shock and awe, took it over in 24 hours. Yep, it would be over that quick. So these people got to wake up. And us knocking down, like they said, 99% of over 300 things shot at a country should make Iran think and go, we are so outmatched. We need to shut the hell up. And I don't understand how they don't, because they could be wiped off the map with a number of countries that are sick of them. What do you think, bud?
Oh, this is a very well done segment, Steve, by the way. You brought up an absolutely huge thing. And I guess I want to start with Netanyahu. First of all, the chilling words headline is definitely worth looking into. But the fact is, he hasn't changed course at all. Okay, Netanyahu had said October 8th that the world can think what they want, but it's on, baby, is basically what he said. Okay, it's on. This is the last of it. We're simply not going to allow these attacks anymore. Hamas has been emboldened to do. They didn't suffer that many casualties in the 6-day war, Steve. Okay, they were attacked by 6 countries when they first became Israel, and they didn't suffer as many casualties as Hamas inflicted upon them. And Netanyahu said, "We will do what we have to do." When people said, remember how I had said in one of our earlier podcasts, I said that the world will very easily tire of this, and they're gonna start coming down on Israel, because they don't want the war to continue. Well, Israel said, "You can get as tired as you want to. We're going to finish the mission. We're going to complete this." And then they did their ground invasion in Gaza, and they had very successful campaigns of eliminating top Hamas leaders. They were under fire for the civilian casualties. Then when they announced Rafah, the world's on fire. Everybody's all upset about it. And he said again, this is what we have to do. We cannot stop until the mission is completed. Okay, so he's been consistent all along. Okay, so I'm not surprised that he said that Israel will do what it has to do. What he's saying is, shut the hell up, everybody. You may have all these opinions, but this is our country. We're a sovereign nation. Israel is going to be, if left to the devices of its enemies, it will be destroyed. There isn't any political solution here. Okay, and our own president is an excuse maker, is a what's what I'm looking for, an apologist, and feeling political pressure about his own election, while millions of people are facing extinction, all for the virtue of being Jewish. Okay, so we'll move on from that. Now let's look at Iran. Okay, Iran, they lost almost 70 drones or more. Okay, those drones cost several $1 million a piece. That was a costly expedition for Iran.
They actually don't, Bill. And I'll get into that. Finish your thought, and I'm going to discuss that.
All right. Well, let's just say Iran, they blew a pretty big wad in that attack. Okay, a lot of their weapons were used, and they're primitive weapons. Jack Keane broke it down the other day on Fox News about what the Iran military basically consists of. Aside from the existential threat of a nuclear program and fingers that don't care about anybody behind those weapons, Iran military is not that tough. Okay, their Revolutionary Guard is not that tough. They're largely outdated, and they're poorly run. And the problem is that the people of Iran don't necessarily support the government, but the government's doing what they want. But the fact is that if Israel were to launch an attack, and by the way, they're going to. Okay, they've had several high-level meetings of the War Committee. They even had CNN with a camera in one of those rooms looking at these guys planning. They're not deciding whether or not to do an attack. They're deciding on what targets they're going to hit and when. Okay, and it's going to get ugly. You're going to see oil pipelines go down. You're going to see roads, bridges destroyed. They're going to do it right. Israel's going to severely attack. Okay, and it's going to be ugly. And for our president to be sitting there telling a sovereign nation, name me one sovereign nation that will allow another country to influence their policies. Please, just give me one.
No one. I mean, what do we have for the best example to compare it to? 9/11, we lost, probably double what they did, and it took down some major buildings. What did we do? Oh, we're not going to do anything. Don't worry about it. No, we lit up Afghanistan and Iraq. So shut up, Biden.
Yeah. So take a country proportional to our size, say like the Soviet Union, the UK. We have some friendly large countries, as allies. None of them said, "Oh, Mr. Biden, it's our opinion. I mean, Mr. Bush, it's our opinion that you shouldn't retaliate." If they even said that, we'd be like,
exactly.
Get out of here.
Come
on. So it's disgusting that we're even having this conversation. I commend Netanyahu for being consistent, and I'm proud to keep pounding that drum and keep blowing that horn, because people are going to forget that he has not swayed from his position once, despite all the people that are trying to get a ceasefire. From the best I can figure, yes, there are humanitarian concerns, but the best I can figure is to get Joe Biden reelected, and I am just disgusted by that. Well, and I will stand by that also.
Well, here's something I want to break down for you that I looked into. Okay, the financial war that's actually being fought that no one's thinking about. There's a financial war, Bill.
Okay,
and it's disproportionately killing us and Israel, because from my understanding on what I've read, those drones do not exceed the price of $100,000. But every single missile that shot them down was $1 million plus.
Yep.
So here we are. What's Iran going to do? Hey, we'll just keep sending these at you. It's going to cost, one drone is 10 times less than that one missile you're using to shoot down. It's a financial war. We're not going to be able to win. And they get that. I think that war has escalated to a point of not just killing people at all. I don't think that's really the main gist of what war is doing now.
Destruction of resources.
Yeah. It is destruction of resources, destruction of the economy or a financial system, and destruction of a military industrial complex, because we're not going to have the weaponry. We're not going to afford to be able to have the weaponry. There's going to become a point where we can't give Israel anything more, and we haven't in a little bit. So this is going to happen. And let's be real. We can rail about all these other countries, Iran, they're terrible and all this, but they're not stupid, Bill. They know that our missiles cost at least $1 million. Their drones cost $100,000 or less, which I believe, from what I read, it's less. So why wouldn't they just send a bunch of drones that only cost $100,000 at us when we gave them billions of dollars to do so, and let us also waste our missiles that will cost us $1 million plus a piece?
Well,
it's unbelievable.
Well, okay. Not only are they smart, Steve, but they're patient.
Yes. Yep.
They're
that's
not,
one
not in
thing.
a hurry. They can wait generations to bring the mighty evil empire down that they call us.
Well, because they, like anything, they believe, and we've talked about this, that the U.S. population does not have the stomach for war, unfortunately, and there are times that we have to.
My point.
And at this point, Hamas needs to go. They've been classified as a terrorist organization. My last understanding of stuff like that is, if you are a terrorist organization, we want you dead. And now we're saying, oh, no, we don't want them dead. It's ridiculous. I'm just flabbergasted at the whole situation.
But I don't want to. They also ran a government in Palestine too, but we won't talk about that for now. But
exactly. But we don't want to leave one final thought. Go ahead.
No. All right. Then let me just leave one thing here, okay? When the Soviet Union first invaded Afghanistan, 1985, I want to say, 86.
The Mujahideen,
Yeah, the mighty of Soviet Union, attacked the Afghanistan. You know what the U.S. policy was at that time? We'll let them run out of bullets.
Well, we helped. It's ironic.
Before we did, though, our policy was to lightly arm a few insurgents, but for the most part, we couldn't have anything with our name on it, right? Okay, so we had to go through back channels. The U.S. policy was based upon the CIA's assessment that the Russians keep dropping bombs and shooting at the Russians, eventually they'll run out of bullets and the conflict will resolve itself. Are you kidding me?
On. And it didn't. We ended up having to back Osama bin Laden with missiles to shoot down
several billion dollars later. We helped them drive Russia out of there. But it's a stupid foreign policy. But what you said is really smart, because that is true. If indeed they are trying to get us to exhaust ourselves with our weapons and have to replenish, and have Israel exhaust its Iron Dome and have us exhaust ourselves with more foreign aid, that's actually a pretty smart way to go about it. It really is.
And again, I'll say this, and I know you'll probably giggle, China is involved in some capacity.
So is Russia.
If Russia's involved, China definitively is, because those two are like joined twins at this point.
Well, that's why a larger regional conflict is so scary, because Iran's biggest backer is Russia.
But the difference is Russia will not directly fight us, neither will China. I believe that. But
they didn't directly fight us in Vietnam or Korea, and they did a lot of damage. So
valid point. Very valid point.
Right.
But good stuff, people. We're going to pay attention to this war like we always have. We're going to bring you stuff. And I'm going to look into that fact that Biden okayed the attack, because that would be as damaging as anything in the international politics that you could think of, because that's basically the leader of our country saying to an enemy that it's okay to attack one of our allies. That's ridiculous. But we're going to move on. We're going to let Bill take over now. He's got a couple opinion pieces that are going to give you different perspectives. We'll let him lay out what he's going to do, and then we'll let him do it. So here we are at the We Are Marshall podcast. We're going to hand it over to Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
All right. Thank you, Steve. All right. The situation on the southern border continues to deteriorate. It also continues to dominate the news. We all know that, okay? Even the most liberal of news outlets are doing their ever-loving best not to, but they're forced to cover the border. And it's becoming a major election issue as well, and a massive thorn in the side of Joe Biden. Mayorkas today had his trial in the Senate. They shot down the impeachment query. They didn't believe in the two articles of impeachment. He's going to continue to follow. He's just doing his job. He's going to continue to follow Biden's orders and let the border be wide open. Well, Texas made the brave move of basically following a constitutional precedent regarding invasion. So my theme today is invasion. Okay. So as the issue of immigration continues to be the topic of the day, one ray of light was when Texas Governor Greg Abbott in November introduced and then had passed by the legislature Senate Bill 4, SB 4, in November 2023. And the law, it gives Texas police officers the authority to arrest people suspected of entering the United States illegally, which is as we saw, between more than 5,000 people a day were coming in, sometimes as many as 10. A lot of them came through Texas and Arizona, Texas in particular. So it also allows Texas state judges to order deportations to Mexico and adds improper border entry as a state criminal offense. It was brought before the Supreme Court by the Biden administration, and amazingly, SCOTUS actually allowed it. They actually said, no, we will permit this. And of course, a nosy little appeals court stepped in and shut it down. And it's sitting on ice as we speak. All right. And as the invasion continues, that the entire heart of the issue is, it's kind of, I hate to limit it and downgrade it to say that it's a matter of semantics, but it kind of is. What does the word invasion actually mean? It depends on what is, right, Steve? So I found, yeah, so I know you were. I know you. So, yep. So I found two opinion pieces. One for the article supporting that Texas is indeed being, quotation fingers, invaded. Okay, and then of course I found one that says it doesn't, and that the precedent. And I'm not going to read the articles to completion. I'm just going to read segments to give you the general idea because they're fairly long. I will give the authors credit, but where it starts is that where in the Constitution did Greg Abbott get the idea to even go? Because let's face it, it's a controversial one. It will obviously fly right in the face of the federal government. It will be embarrassing for the federal government to have a state take on policing something that's a federal matter. Immigration is, at its heart, a federal matter, a civil matter, unfortunately, as well. So what happened was you basically have Texas acting without the authority of the federal government. So basically, here's where it starts. I found a very interesting scholarly piece written on this, written by a gentleman named Robert G. Nadelson and Andrew T. Hyman. And it's 14 pages long. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read one segment. They point out where in the Constitution this is discussed. Article 1, Section 10, the Constitution declares, courts and lawyers typically refer to Article 1, Section 10. I'm sorry, they're not directly quoting the Constitution. They're interpreting this part of it, Article 1, Section 10. Courts and lawyers typically refer to Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution as the Compact Clause, and Article 4, Section 4 is the Guarantee Clause. Our examination, however, focuses on one selected components of those two provisions. To increase precision, we identify the relevant components as follows. The Self-Defense Clause is the part of the Compact Clause that provides no state shall, without the consent of Congress, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, or engage in war unless actually invaded, or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. 8. The protection from invasion clause is the part of the Guarantee Clause that provides the United States shall protect each of them against invasion. And 9, the Domestic Violence Clause, the segment of the Guarantee Clause that reads, the United States shall protect each of them, i.e. the states, on application of the legislature of the executive or the executive when legislation cannot be convened against domestic violence. So the whole constitutional battle comes down, unfortunately, to the meaning of the word invasion. And for the sake of this conversation, it's going to be interpreted by what the founding fathers meant by invaded when they wrote this clause in the first place. And of course, the question being, is the situation in Texas fit into that clause? Because if it does, the Supreme Court will rule, hopefully, with a slim majority that we have for conservative and let's face it, rational thinking, this will decide the issue. So Justin Haskins is a New York Times bestselling author, and he's the director of the Socialism Research Center at the Heartland Institute. Interesting enough, though, he came down on the side of saying that Texas is right. Okay, so this is what he said. He says, there's no denying there's a crisis at the American southern border. Even many of Joe Biden's most ardent defenders will admit it. But several questions remain. What can and what should be done about it, and by whom? So the state of Texas and the Biden administration are currently fighting in federal court over some of the proposed answers to those questions. As a matter of fact, the Biden administration is currently suing Texas over this. Fed up with the administration's unwillingness to enforce existing federal law, that's correct, Texas passed Senate Bill 4, SB 4, in November 23. And the law gives Texas police officers the authority to arrest people suspected of entering the United States illegal. It also allows Texas judges to order deportations to Mexico and adds improper border entry as a state criminal offense. The Biden administration and the state of Texas are fighting over this, the constitutionality of it, in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Regardless of what that court decides, the fate of Senate Bill 4 will ultimately be determined by the SCOTUS, which so far has refused to weigh in on the merits of the legal dispute. So although much of the media coverage of the legal battle between the White House and Texas is focused on immigration, the heart of the issue is whether Texas has the constitutional authority to defend its citizens. That's the key. To defend its citizens from the negative effects of having hundreds of thousands, millions of people illegally cross this border each year. In other words, it's about states' rights. Now, the other issue at hand right now in the news is abortion. And Donald Trump is advocating for state right. This has always been a big thing. It is even a part of the Civil War. It's always been an issue of where the states' rights end and where the federal government begins.
Well, since you threw in that abortion there, why don't Greg Abbott say, my state, my rights?
You know what? I think he probably has. And if he hasn't,
let's be real,
he will.
Isn't that the argument that women utilize to kill babies all the time?
Yeah, of course it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good, Steve. In Article 1, Section 10, the Constitution declares, no state shall, without the consent of Congress, engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. So again, semantics. So the state of Texas is arguing that the ongoing flood of illegal immigration qualifies as an invasion and has the constitutional authority to defend itself if the federal government refuses to provide necessary assistance. The federal government says the word invasion cannot be invoked because of what's happening in Texas, and thus Texas must adhere to whatever federal authorities decide, regardless of the potential harms. So to the Founding Fathers, an invasion referred to any unauthorized entry that includes even a slight degree of hostility.
Okay, pause.
The Constitution.
For a second.
Yeah,
Can I pause you for a sec because I have a question.
Sure.
Did
Please.
you just say that they don't want? No, I just lost my thought. What you said? You said something about the federal government doesn't want them to protect themselves.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah.
That's
what this gentleman said. Yeah, and I emphasized it with my.
Okay, I was just making sure that's how I heard it.
It has the constitutional right to defend itself if the government refuses to provide necessary assistance, and regardless of the potential harms. This is what the guy said. Yeah, interesting. So to the Founding Fathers, an invasion.
That was the phrase that I wanted. Thank you for repeating it. Regardless of the potential harms. So basically, our federal government is saying, hey, if 10,000 of you are going to get killed, who cares? Unbelievable.
It's an acceptable loss. Yes, exactly what they're saying, which is disgusting. So as we said, to the Founding Fathers, an invasion referred to any unauthorized entry that includes even a slight degree of hostility. Well, the constitutional law scholars, Robert Nadelson and Andrew Hyman, the ones I quoted from the article they wrote, and I'm sorry, the article was actually called, forgive me for not elaborating on that. It was, let me find it. It is called The Constitution, Invasion, Immigration, and the War Powers of States. Okay. That's what the article is called. It's fascinating. It's a great read. So back to where I was here. Okay. So following a detailed historical analysis of the meaning of the word invasion prior to, during, and after the writing of the Constitution, Nadelson and Hyman concluded the constitutional term invasion denotes an unauthorized and uninvited intrusion of any size across a border, where the intrusion causes or threatens to cause detriment beyond the fact of the intrusion itself. Holy crap. Right? I mean, that is exactly what's happening here. All right.
And if that's the definition, then the Supreme Court's going to side with them.
Yeah, well, not if Sotomayor and Ketanji Jackson have anything to say about it. But this claim is supported by a wealth of historical evidence. Okay. And this is interesting. One example involved a conflict that arose between the citizens of Connecticut and Pennsylvania over much of the second half of the 18th century. Benjamin Franklin from Pennsylvania wrote in 1754 about a plan to stop citizens of Connecticut from continuing their emigration into Pennsylvania who lodged a formal complaint that they didn't want anybody coming into their state without being, vetted, suggested it would divert the Connecticut immigrants from the design of invading this province. Note that Franklin viewed this largely peaceful immigration as an invasion. And for the sake of this conversation, he means it's not merely trespassing. They were unwelcome with intent to harm.
What was the result of that?
The result of that, it basically worked itself out as the country just basically became the melting pot that it was, and people went everywhere and traveled everywhere. It was futile to be segregationist, if you will, in your population, and it just kind of went away.
So that didn't set a precedent that they could utilize.
No, but it was a very famous thing that a lot of very powerful people weighed in on, and it was a very well known thing. And the word invasion was tossed around pretty liberally in that during that time. They weren't welcome, and Pennsylvania said, we don't want you here. So in but the Pennsylvanians weren't the only ones using invasion to describe non-military acts of unauthorized entry. In the Federalist Papers, written to convince Americans to support the adoption of the Constitution, James Madison argued that a navy would be important to the new nation to prevent pirates and barbarians, who were referred to as daring and sudden invaders. Well, the association between invasion and piracy is important because there are strong similarities between the massive number of drug cartels that pour across Texas's border every year and the piracy of the 18th and 19th centuries. Both cases involve non-government, violent groups that cross national borders without permission, but they have no interest in conquest or overturning governments. They are merely here to cause harm and disruption. Well, that is exactly what Texas is saying. So if pirates were considered invaders when the Constitution was written, then what are drug cartels? What are violent criminals who cross America's border with the intent of forming gangs to do the same sex trafficking, drugs, violence, robbery, corruption, whatever that they're doing in South America? What's to stop them from doing that here? And this is what Abbott has been saying. So Texas by this argument, Texas had the constitutional authority to do this. And other scholars have come to similar conclusions. Joshua Tavino at the Texas Public Policy Foundation published a lengthy article on this subject in 2022. He said the presence or threatened presence of hostile criminal groups, such as Mexican cartels, raises different questions. An analogy between some of these groups, if large or harmful enough, and the pirate bands whose incursions were held to constitute invasions by one of the leading architects of America's constitutional order may be warranted. So the conclusion of this article is reasonable people can disagree about whether the founding fathers would consider the current situation as an invasion, but would they have considered all forms of modern illegal immigration akin to it? So the evidence is absolutely clear. The founders believed that those who cross America's borders and commit other crimes, especially violent ones, are invaders. And thus the federal government has a responsibility to stop them. And Greg Abbott says, if you're not going to stop them, then we're going to. Boom. That's the conclusion of part one. Want to weigh in before we move on, Steve?
Well, I mean, just a few things that I want to add, and you continue. But
sure.
There was just, that app that Biden created for the immigrants?
I don't think I'm aware of that.
Oh, he had an app created that you could fill out to get here by amnesty through the app. And some guy just
I did hear about that.
Some guy got through and he just killed someone. So there's your app. Good job, Biden. But how many terrorists got into our country? They've already admitted that there are many gotaways. Okay, so that means we don't know who they are. Millions, yep. And then we're suing Texas, our federal government, who Texas is just trying to protect us. All I can say
survive.
All I can say is wow. But I wanted to bring up the abortion thing because you did touch it, and I'm about to blow your mind. You ready for this?
All right, sure.
Bill Maher. You know who Bill Maher is, right?
Of course. Everybody's favorite.
Bill Maher is a leftist, a liberal, but sometimes he does come out and say some normal things.
He's increasingly intolerant of the woke movement going on. He is.
That's it, just the woke movement. But listen to what he said just the other day. He was on his show and he was talking about abortion. I'm just bringing it up because you had talked about it before. And in it, he said, he turned to some people in his panel and he's like, You people are ridiculous to say the GOP or the Republicans don't like abortion because they hate women. That's ludicrous. It's not that they hate women. It's that this is from Maher saying this.
Yeah.
They feel that abortion is murder. And you can't sway that if they feel it's murder. And Bill Maher came right out as a Democrat, leftist, liberal and said, it is murder. Can you believe that?
Wow.
But here's the worst part. This is what he said right after that. He said it is murder. It's considered murder in my opinion. And I'm okay with that. He said that.
He's okay with the murder, or he's okay
yes,
with...
He's okay with the murder of abortion and calling it murder. And what he said is, well, goodbye and good riddance. We don't care. We won't know you anyway. What the hell? That's a leftist talking like that, Bill. This is how they look at abortion. It's okay to murder. Unbelievable. But continue. Let's grab right in. I just wanted to point those two things out.
That's relevant, and that just sickens me on so many levels, Steve.
Big time. Couldn't believe it.
Oh, horrible. So now we have the opposite. This is from Newsweek, by the way, and I love how Newsweek does this. The CNN does it too. CNN is sometimes bearable for me. They provide a back and forth. So the other article that comes out was Debunking the Invasion Myth by Rodrigo Aguilar Beninos. He's an international analyst, member of the Council on Foreign Relations, and a senior advisor for APCO Worldwide.
So he's one that's going to say this is not an invasion.
Well, he's just going to question the semantics of invasion. This is really, okay. I hate to say it, Steve, but it really comes down to our favorite joke. It depends on what is, okay?
Yeah, the definition.
We always say that because it's the definite, it's the benchmark for stupid government arguments that just continue to delay action, okay? So the assertion that the influx of migrants into Texas constitutes an invasion, quotation fingers, is a misinterpretation of the term as intended by the framers of the Constitution. Steve Vladek, a law professor, outlined this distinction clearly. He argued the use of the word invasion in political discourse today is a far cry from its constitutional context, which implies a hostile military action by a foreign government. Immigration, even when unauthorized, is a civil matter, not a military. Okay, well, Abbott's not talking military, he's talking police. So, moreover, a federal court, an activist judge of an appeals court, rejected Texas's argument that illegal migration qualifies as an invasion, underscoring the legal basis of immigration as a federal jurisdiction matter. The court's decision highlighted the state's attempt to frame immigration as a security threat akin to an invasion. And it absolutely is a security threat akin to an invasion, but that's my words. Such a notion is not supported by the Constitution or federal law. The ruling reaffirmed that immigration, including its challenges and management, is under the purview of federal authority, not the states. If so, the concept of immigration as an invasion is a flawed interpretation of international and domestic law. Such rhetoric not only misrepresents the nature of migration, but undermines the legal process of protection established for asylum seekers and refugees. This stance is far from the values of due process and humanitarian protection enshrined in U.S. law and policy. The Founding Fathers, were they alive today, would reject the notion of immigration as an invasion. Their vision for America was a beacon of freedom and opportunity, not a fortress closed off to the outside world. Yeah, closed off, right. The very essence of the American dream is predicated on the idea of welcoming those who seek a better life through hard work and contribution to society. This principle is encapsulated in the words described in the Statue of Liberty: give me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, blah, blah, blah. The idea that Texas or any other state is being invaded by migrants is not only a mischaracterization of the situation, but also a dangerous narrative that fosters division and xenophobia. It also overlooks the legal, ethical, and historical context of immigration in the United States and detracts from the substantive discussion on how to manage immigration effectively and compassionately, respecting rule of law and human dignity at the same time. The Founding Fathers, who laid the groundwork for a nation built on principles of freedom and inclusivity, would advocate for a reasoned and humane approach to immigration that aligns with the nation's core values and legal framework. And as legal scholars and recent court rulings affirm, the way forward is through dialogue, policy reform, and adherence to the rule of law, not through hyperbolic representations of migration as an existential threat. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I respect the sentiment behind it. it's just too, unfortunately, too idealistic. It's too lofty. So let's just take. I'm just going to say this real quick, Steve, and then I'm going to hand it over to you. Okay, the people that they're talking about. This is not what's coming across the border right now. We have criminals. We have military-age men. Very few women.
I don't want to cut you off, but I literally have to say what you're saying. I literally just wrote down. So keep going. That's great. We're thinking the same. I love it.
All right. You have people who are coming here to commit crimes, to be members of gangs. You have people who are coming here to run drugs, sex trafficking. And then, of course, let's face it, terrorism is a massive scare to the point where our FBI director issued a statement the other day saying that he's never seen a point in American history, historically, where we're ever more in danger of an eternal incident than we are at this moment. Okay.
Unfortunately, though, does he truly mean that, or was that?
I think he does.
Was that posturing to make sure the FISA bill passed?
Well, but he's still going against Biden administration policy, and unfortunately, the FBI, which is not a political organization, has been falling in line with the administration's policies. So he's breaking with policy right now by saying that. But as a leader of the largest and most important legal body, not legal body, excuse me, law enforcement body in the country, I think it's important that to note that he did come out and say that, because that's about as scary as it gets. So, but
I truly believe that was posturing for the FISA warrant bill.
You know what? I accept that. I believe it. I'm just basically my point is that he said it. You know, the reason behind it can be taken a lot of different ways, and you always have a very good assessment of those things, and I have faith in that. But the problem is that I can be an asshole right here and say that I'm characterizing immigration in a hostile way. But I believe in what I'm saying. I'm not everybody. I'm not saying all of them. There are people looking for a better life. I get that, okay? But there's a lot of people who have come here. Look at the incidents in New York City where the cops are beat up. Very small incident, but look at the attitude of the perpetrators. They were all waving fingers at you. Yeah. You know, F you, we're here. We don't give a shit about your laws. Well, if half the people that come here, or a quarter of the people that come here, have that attitude, this country is done.
How about that? What you said is a huge. How about 1% of them?
Right. You know, people say that radical Islam, only 1% of all people who follow the teachings of Muslim religion are actually hostile or violent. Well, look how many Muslims are in the world. 1% is a pretty substantive number.
1% large of 1.5 billion people. Yes.
Yeah. I mean that's scary. If 10% of the hostile getaways that we have come here to do harm to us, it's over. It's over. I'm sorry, but
it's going to be bad.
So that was. I know it's a long piece, Steve, and I hope it was well.
Yeah, but it's okay because you gave both perspectives, and I like that. But like as the Democrats say, and they're saying it now a lot, things change. So let's rip down statues and let's change laws and let's do that. That's what liberalism is. They are not satisfied with how the state of the country is, so they continuously want change. Okay? So things change. So what the Statue of Liberty says needs to change. Okay? It doesn't fit society today or the world or the microcosmic area of our country compared to the globe. Okay? We cannot continue to afford this influx of people and they lead us to, and let us be honest, okay? Too, they are not lawyers, doctors, and high educated people that are coming over that border. Okay? Right. These are people that need benefits, education, things that are going to cost this country an exorbitant amount of money. Okay, and many of them don't want to acclimate to our society, so they then become problems within our society. So if I'm going to go with the Democrats right now and say, hey, you guys want to do all these things that change, well, guess what? Shut your face. The Statue of Liberty needs to change. The world is becoming too dangerous. We need to know who's in this country, and we need to know what they're up to, period. That's it.
We need immigration quotas again. I talked to a guy about that once.
I don't mind the quota.
What a racist I was,
Yep, I don't mind the quota because I'd rather have skilled people here that have something to offer our society rather than us to have to educate them and train them constantly.
Look what we have. Name one country that has an open border.
None.
There isn't one. Yep. Look at even Israel's neighbors. Some of them are refusing to accept Palestinian refugees. Some because Palestinians in particular, and other people because they just know it's once you do it, then it's over. Okay. Now we have people chanting.
They don't trust the Palestinian people. They know Hamas will be involved and right in the middle of them if they let them over the border.
And boy, was somebody's head blow off if they heard me say that. But someone is going to hear me say that because I just said it in the podcast. But I'll end it with this, okay? We have people right now yelling "Death to America," and they're in
America. Yeah, in America. Yep. And where's the FBI? The FBI should be arresting them and investigating them. And they were yelling "Death to America" with a Hezbollah flag behind them on top of it. Hezbollah is classified as a terrorist organization. Last I remember. I mean, they say white supremacists is so bad. I don't hear them yelling "Death to America." They want to defend America. I'm not defending white supremacists at all, but they go after them for doing that. So go after these people for the same thing. That's all I have to say.
There are good people on both sides. Remember that one?
Yes, Donald Trump. But we're at the end of the podcast. Good stuff, I think, today. I hope you folks learned a lot. But I have quite a story today that I'm a very optimistic person in the health industry. And Bill knows that all the time. I'm always reading stuff and finding it out, and I'm positive for him all the time. So I found this story, which is amazing because when you lose a sense, meaning your hearing, your eyesight, taste, things like that, that's so detrimental to a person's life and psyche. Exactly. You if you can't see the world around you, I mean, you're losing out and missing out on so many things. Sure. So this story I came up with is fascinating. I love it, and it's stuff that, Bill, I've always said to you, it's coming, and here we go. But bioengineered corneas stand to cure blindness for millions of people around the world. In an interview with the Brisbane Times, an Australian ophthalmologist and biotech entrepreneur lays out his vision for a world in which curing blindness in millions of people worldwide is easy and can be done with a bit of cell replication and, I've told you this, Bill, a 3D printer. Okay?
I'm still focused on the word easy. That's killing me.
In an interview with the Brisbane Times, an Australian ophthalmologist said that the 3D printer and bit of cell replication is working. So Professor Gerard Sutton is co-founder of Bioengineered, which he claims now possesses a product, both physical and intellectual, that will soon be able to mass produce natural corneas for transplantation into the blind. Cornea transplantation is the most common way of restoring lost eyesight, but it's a very technical procedure that relies on donors. The thin see-through windscreen of the eyeball, damage or disease to the cornea, is a major cause of non-hereditary blindness worldwide. In the interview, Sutton's voice shrinks as he recalls a trip he took to Myanmar in 2004, when he was hoping to help the situation of blindness from the previous civil war by training surgeons to perform cornea transplants. On ice, he said, he had brought along 4 donated corneas from the NSW Eye Bank. On his arrival at the clinic, set to host him, 1,000 people were waiting, thanks to a small article in a local paper. Out of 1,000 blind men and women, he had to select 4 who would be the most suitable for transplant. He picked young people. This was a transformational experience, and when paired with a follow-up trip to Cambodia, where a similar situation occurred, Professor Sutton realized he needed to do something more, something out of left field that would allow him to send as many corneas to these parts of the world as was needed. At present, there is only one donor cornea available globally, to treat every 70 people requiring a corneal transplant, said Professor Damien Harkin, who is a part of Bienco's staff based at the Queensland University of Technology. Through laboratory cultivation, we estimate that a single donor cornea could provide treatment for 30 people. Bienco's artificial corneas are based on collagen, the proteins that make hair, skin, nails, and connective tissue. This tends to create opaque tissue, like our skin, and so the first challenge was to make collagen see-through. Once this was done, Sutton had the other members of Bienco, like Harkin, had to figure out how to apply the many layers of collagen to make a cornea structure that could be transplantable. In 2021, Sutton managed to convince the Medical Research Future Fund, set up by the Treasurer of Australia, to back Bienco to the tune of Australian $35 million. Armed with this unprecedented injection of cash, Sutton believes they are 3 to 4 years from achieving their goals and making Australia the center of bioengineering on Earth. We are just so that's where we are on that. I think it's a good story. I think it's very important that we pay attention to many of these things because, I mean, they're changing the world, Bill. They're changing how people can, see, how people can have transplants, how people can do a number of things with stem cells and nanotechnology and a bunch of stuff. And I just find it so fascinating at many of the things that I've watched and exposed through this podcast, that this is just fascinating. Once again, I love all these medical breakthroughs. They're the biggest ones to me. Of course, I love technical breakthroughs because I'm a tech guy, but I love the healthcare because I know I deal with people around me that are ailing and having issues, and I want them to be safe and secure and have a long life and have quality of life. And hearing these things makes me optimistic and feel good about it. So, what do you think about all this, Bill?
I think it's amazing, Stephen. We're on a course to eliminate the word disability.
Yeah.
I mean, and as a person with failing vision and failing ears and all that, I'm interested in knowing that this might not be a permanent situation I have to deal with forever, that there might be something around the corner, and transplant is obviously something near and dear to me. I went to the registry today to get some paperwork done, and they had on their counter, the New Hampshire's doing a campaign for organ donation. So basically, when people apply for a license, you're given the opportunity to become an organ donor. And they used to have these rubber magnetic, like refrigerator magnets that go in your car that say "Donate Life." And I asked if they had any more, and she said we don't. And she says, you seem really interested in this. I said, well, yeah, I've had 2 organ transplants. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, I would love to have that on my car and raise awareness. I said, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that I know personally that need an organ transplant, And I guarantee she's looking at it differently now. It's because of what I said to her today. And all these people that have a situation that they kind of historically have to resign themselves to, there's hope now that they don't have to have that. And I don't use the word normal, but a better life and something way beyond any expectation that anybody before us ever had. And you point these things out to me. I would never have heard one of these stories, Steve, if not for you. And just as your faith in people is being restored, my hope for technology and my interest in technology, if you will, because I'm not really a huge tech guy, has increased over it. And I feel hope now where I used to feel kind of like, just accepting it as what it is. So this is great stuff. I love what these segments you do. I love them.
Yep. So here we are. I hope you all learned something here. So thank you once again for listening in or watching the We Are Marshall podcast. As we always state, my name is Stephen Marshall. This is my co-host, Bill McIntyre. Just 2 guys discussing the issues of the day, laying out the facts of those issues, and giving you our opinion and view on those issues. We would also love it here at the We Are Marshall podcast if you would like and share all of our episodes around your social media. We can be found on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Locals, X, Truth Social, and Rumble. Now, Rumble is where we populate our full channel with season 1 and 2 of all our episodes. Download the free app Rumble and search for the We Are Marshall podcast, then subscribe and follow to get notification of new episodes and other endeavors by Bill and I. Check out our episodes on all these social media sites and share them to help us grow. We'd also love it if you would check out our website at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com. You can see a number of things Bill and I are working on the website. If you go to Bill's bio, you can click on a link to all his blog posts and check out Vella on Amazon, where Bill also writes episodic short stories for your viewing. Check out my two books currently for sale on Amazon, The Unforeseen Enemy and The Perception Therapist. Both are available now. Also, check out our sponsors, Local Prints New Hampshire. You can go to our website again at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com and click on the link to Local Prints New Hampshire at the top left. They are a full-scale screen printing company in Hampstead, New Hampshire, and they are available for domestic and international printing. Go support them as they do support us. Also, check out our large sponsor, MateConnector.com, a large dating website just like all the other big dating websites out there with all the features that the big players have in the dating sphere. But Mate Connector is much more inexpensive than any of the other players in the dating market. If you have any questions or issues, you can reach us both at Bill at wearemarshallpodcast.com and Steve at wearemarshallpodcast.com. We'd also like it if you would check out our new sponsor, Army Painting and Contracting, Army Ranger Painting and Contracting, excuse me. And you can see them on their website at www.armyrangerpainting.com. Go check them out. Good prices, quality work, and they're a full-service contractor. We enjoyed giving you all this information and discussing it with you today. Thank you, Bill. We did a good job. I like the information we provided, and I hope everyone liked it. I hope you all have a